Nation, welcome to the Duza Bear Digest for Thursday, July 15, 2021. Last week, the Globe and Mail reported ngpvan, which runs liberal digital voter outreach, had been paid $1 million since 2016 to exclusively handle constituency casework for party MPs. Payments have also been received by Data Sciences, which oversees the Liberal Party's digital operations during elections. The concern is, since Data Sciences works with ngpvan on digital election activities, whether any of those funds violated parliamentary funding rules. Whether this is just another opposition fishing expedition or a valid investigation, and let's face it, the opposition has cried wolf so many times now, it's hard to take anything they claim seriously anymore. But whether it is serious will be determined by a partisan-filled House of Commons Ethics Committee. But there's a gulf of difference between breaking rules and corruption. So if you jump to the conclusion this is corruption, then you should keep in mind that while in government, Harper's Conservatives were still at a 6-to-1 ratio to Trudeau on rules and ethics violations. And thus far, not one of Trudeau's violations has resulted in anything comparable to the $300,000 in fines the Harper government had to pay for election fraud. Nor has any Liberal MP gone to jail for fraud, as Conservative Dean Del Mastro did when he spent a month in jail and then was released on 18 months probation for violations in 2008. While the more cynical will accuse all politicians of being in it for themselves, I've met and spoke with many on both sides, the vast majority of which are simply trying to navigate often conflicting and contradictory rules, each put in by the other side when they were in power to trip up their opposition by making alternative practices to what they do an ethics violation. I mean, imagine taking a job that frankly pays less than you'd get in the private sector, one you could lose forever in just 4 years or less, simply because your boss isn't popular, and one where if you get any attention at all, you'll be vilified by one side or the other in every public social media platform 24/7. Imagine having all the risks of being a celebrity without any of the real benefits. And yes, if they make it to the 6th year, they qualify for a pension you and I will likely never see, but an overwhelming majority of them don't last that long. Now imagine that the public and transparent donations that you need to keep your job are highly regulated and monitored, but nothing stops lobby groups from hosting $500 a plate fundraisers where no tracking is done for what's called passing the hat, which is literally a hat being passed for people to put money in. And that's allowed because no tax receipts are issued, so there's no accounting for how much is put in the hat by anyone present. None. The organizer can give a candidate almost all the money raised from the sale of the plates without cap or transparency, and the only record of it comes at each quarter end's fundraising report from the party. And since the industry throwing most of these is oil and gas, likely using much of the taxpayer-covered bailout the Alberta government gave them to prop up pro-oil candidates at the federal level under the pretense of pass-the-hat per-plate lobbying fundraisers, one shouldn't be surprised that leaders of the party holding those hats don't want to discuss that practice. But I stress, none of what I just told you is illegal under the House rules. Those rules are specific to how parties spend tax money, not what they do to raise donations. On this day in 1870, Rupert's Land and the Northwest Territory were transferred to Canada from the Hudson's Bay Company, and the province of Manitoba and the Northwest Territories were established from these vast territories. That was back when Northwest meant everything north and west of Ohio. See what I did there? On this day in 1975, the launch of both an Apollo spacecraft and a Soyuz spacecraft occurred for the first joint Soviet-United States human crewed flight. It was also the last launch of an Apollo spacecraft and the final Saturn rocket launch. On this day in 1979, U.S. President Jimmy Carter gave his malaise speech. 2 days later, he clarified he was actually talking about mayonnaise. And it's Twitter's Twitter birthday. The social media platform was launched on this day in 2006 with a complaint tweet by Trump reading, "Sad." It's also Gummy Worm Day, Hot Dog Day, and Tapioca Pudding Day. And that's today's Duza Bear Digest. See you tomorrow.